Woo!
We're going to talk about our inspirations, right?
Yeah, favorite artists that inspire us. That was kind of the loose suggestion you had, so I think that we'll be able to get a lot out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a two-parter, depending on how far in depth we get, because like I don't think it's just going to be like listing off artists and being like, I like this one, I like that one, yeah, that looks nice, and that's it. I think it is really going to be like, why do we like their stuff? What does it do for us? We didn't talk about it beforehand as to who you're. I don't think we're going to have any overlap. I
kind of hope we do. That'd be interesting. I don't think we will.
I don't think we will either. And I think you can guess like a couple of mine. Like some of them I don't think you're going to, like, I only had 2 at the start.
Yeah.
And then I didn't tell you that, but I was like, how many should we do?
Yeah.
You're like, I got like 6 or 7. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I should think of some more. Like, I just wasn't sure. So I have 6 now, and some of them are going to be quicker for me.
Yeah.
Because they are mostly aesthetic, and some are really, really important to my art practice. And we can definitely get into that. But
well, and when I was thinking about it too, I mean, it's, for me, some of them, my art is not like them. I have not emulated them. There's nothing sort of like that would look like a direct correlation maybe. But some of the inspiration I feel like is their art and the way they wrote about their art or the way they presented things, or I guess that kind of thing, almost inspired me or gave me license, or it was an example of something then that I felt more open that I could do. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like learning about something, and it's like the inspiration isn't now I'm going to do what you're doing, but the inspiration is sort of that license that, oh, I didn't even know you could do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So just sort of an inspiration to...
Well, you said opening up to just new ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's a thing? Like, I didn't...
Yeah, for sure. But what did I write down? Oh, like, I always joke that I get brain crushes, because I'll meet people and I just like the way they think, and good conversations and stuff. So I sort of, maybe it's not a joke, it's true, I kind of get these brain crushes, and just really, really, then like talking to those people or that kind of thing. And I think that almost happens with some artists. Like, I'll go through periods where I really sort of like what's going on, and I kind of read about it, and it kind of gives me, so I feel like I almost go through these stages of having, I mean, I went a little while with Yoko Ono, and I sort of like read everything about it and looked at it and watched documentaries and different things like that. And so I sort of go through these stages of really wanting to know more about an artist, really wanting to see what makes them tick, and not only just sort of see what they've done. So that's something that I still do, like, and have done. So it's sort of this practice of just sort of thinking they're cool and trying to figure out everything about them and that kind of thing. So like I say, they might not be artists that I'm like, oh, now I want to do something just like Yoko Ono. I don't do things like Yoko Ono, but it's so inspiring to me, and she's inspiring to me, and she's one of my people that I've written down. But so that's maybe something with my process, or something that I continually do and kind of do with different artists. So I kind of get infatuated with some for a while.
Well, and I think it's important too that when you're saying, like, these brain crushes and stuff like that, because I also asked, like, wait a second, are we just talking about visual artists? Mm-hmm. Because usually, like, sometimes I'm in that mode, I'm like, that's what we're talking about, and then you're like, oh, but it could be this or it could be that, and then, I mean, I think of art as so much, because in music and writing and movies and dance, like we talked about last time, or whatever, right? So I think most of mine are visual artists, like a vast majority. So we'll see where that goes too. But that's the thing, is just like, we're not necessarily talking about pieces of art that influence us, but the artists.
Yeah.
So then it goes back to kind of our conversation last week too, of like, well, what defines an artist anyway? What defines art? And so it's going to be what we think of as artists that are very influential to us, or just favorites. Like, I even picked some specifically in certain like medias that they work in, or like, well, not medias, but maybe styles, being like, out of all these kind of styles, like maybe, or this genre of art, this is the one that I can say like is the most important to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, we think about art and artists in different ways, and then yeah, the thing that you're saying about the brain crushes, like that's really important, I guess, too. Of just like, there's people that I won't have on this list that just having conversations with them or whatever, like it pushes me and inspires me artistically, even though they wouldn't ever consider themselves an artist or anything like that. And it's just because just through their ideas are of such value, and the way they challenge me either directly or just because we're having just a good conversation, it inspires either me, my life, and sometimes very directly my art. Like they're just things that are said or whatever that I'm like, this is a visual art piece now for me, this idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they had no intention and they're not an artist or anything like that. But anyway.
I think that's sort of, when we talk about this artist's life, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it is that our life, like what goes on in our life, all of those things affect and inspire. And so even though maybe this list of people or certain things inspire us, everything also does, like everything in the day. And I mean, last time you talked about just even a paint splatter, right? Yeah. So there's things, conversations, absolutely, like conversations that you have, and sometimes with someone who would never guess that conversation you just had has now inspired something. Yeah. So, or it happens to me, especially with writing, with conversations that will spark writing for me, more than visual art, I think. But lots of times, either someone I meet or just an event kind of that happens can kind of start writing for me, even if it's not about that particular event or something. I don't know. I don't know how that inspiration works, but it just kind of twigs a fire. Okay. I don't know, yeah. and so then I all of a sudden want to sit and write something. So yeah, even though we're going to talk about specific people, I think just part of being an artist is always being aware of everything and how things fit and
I think cool. It just comes naturally to a lot of artists of being that observant about your surroundings and also yourself, and obviously that changes depending on the artist. Like I'm very self-aware of myself, and sometimes not as much as my surroundings, but I'm aware as to how my surroundings affect me. Yeah. Whereas some people are the opposite, and it's more, because maybe they're doing more studies of life, but not their life, and I feel like mine is not so much the study of the people or the things that I see, but rather how everything affects me and the study of myself. But.
I was thinking, as we're thinking, then I was also, when I was in university, it was, it seemed like all the art students, we were always like last minute, and we're always doing stuff, and a lot of times it was last minute. Paul gives me a hard time whenever I have like an exhibition coming up. It's like last minute, I'm doing everything. But it never is, because it's like constantly on my brain. When I have an exhibition coming up, or I have a project that I'm doing, or something like that, it is always on my mind. Like 24/7, that's what I'm thinking about. And then it comes together. So it's not that it's this last minute thing that you're doing, sort of like writing a paper. Although even papers, I used to do that. They would just be like milling around in my brain and milling around in my brain, and then boom, it sort of starts to come out. So I guess to me, that's more of a process, I guess. But if you're always thinking, and if it's always a project, then I think you're open to inspiration. So you're open to, like, I'm always open to a project could change, or I'm open to, now I think of it this way. I never think of that as a bad thing or something that takes away from project I'm doing. I love when things all of a sudden come in and influence or change my original idea.
Exactly. And even just thinking like of installing in a gallery, when you were talking about things are last minute, I was very like, thinking my BFA exhibition, I was very calculated, and I knew everything was going to go and whatever. And I was familiar with the gallery. It wasn't like I just got there and it was like, oh wow, what can I do with this space? Yeah. It was the main gallery on campus. I had seen it a billion times. But once I was there and putting stuff up, I was like, I could do this and I could do this. Yeah. And let me change this around. And like, I never thought about displaying it like this. And there were last minute adjustments that I made, even just with like pretending there was like fake blood on stuff or whatever, and that was like last minute stuff. I was like, yes, this makes sense with the concept. But like you said, it's always a process. You're always in the mode of like of being open to inspiration, and sometimes you're inspired by your own work as it's coming together in a new way, or I don't know. And that's why I'm interested in this conversation too, to see like I'm like maybe I'll end up thinking of someone else or jumping off of one of your artists or whatever, and just like seeing what happens with it. So yeah, that's why it might be a two-parter. We have some, like, you've got some notes, I've got some notes on my phone, some quotes, and also just notes and stuff like that. So we might be looking at that every once in a while. But I don't know, with that, why don't we start with one of yours?
Okay, well, the first one I've written down, and she's more of, is Yoko Ono. And the first piece I saw of, so I only knew Yoko Ono as, you know, the Beatles and John Lennon. That's only, I watched quite a few documentaries about John Lennon, because again, I was interested in him. When I grew up, my dad was really interested in, and had, you know, the album that had John and Yoko on it. So I always kind of had that connection, but I didn't actually even know that she was an artist. And I forget the first time I saw her stuff. I think it was maybe on a documentary. And I saw that she'd been doing art like since the 70s, and very, very conceptual art. And it just really interested me, you know, and that was before I was taking art or practicing art, and I just thought her pieces were so different, and I didn't understand them really because they were very conceptual, but I liked them. Then when I went to art school, that sounds so weird. When I went to university, Mary Kavanaugh, one of my professors, introduced me to Yoko Ono's piece Cut. And that like really changed things for me. It was so visceral. So it's a piece where she is kneeling down on a stage. She's wearing a black dress, I think, something very nondescript. And she has like scissors and a knife. A couple more pieces, some fairly like sort of violent pieces that people
tools. Yeah.
And she invited the audience to come up and use them. And so people would come up, and it was very, at first, people were very timid, right, as to what to do. And so they would take little snippets of her dress and do that. And then it got much more, well, violence, the only word I can think of, and people sort of cutting and getting, and then down to her, she had a kind of a camisole type thing on underneath, and cutting her bra and doing that, and you could see the fear start to come like over her face as people were doing that, and then sort of the violence, like, so just watching this, and it's a silent black and white video, and it was just so compelling. Like, it was just how it changed on her face. And so either, I don't know if she knew it was going to go that way. I don't think she probably could have. But all of a sudden, you have put yourself out there, and you have invited that, and not really knowing what you're going to get back. And then seeing the people come up and do it. And it was the men that started to get definitely more aggressive. And like I say, the only thing I can think of is violent, even though they were just cutting. There was just that feeling of that. And I kind of, yeah, it was just really, really visceral. And even now, like, talking about it is. And so it was the first time, too, that I'd seen that kind of performance.
Yeah.
So that could be a performance, and that just sort of, and what that can mean, right? Like what this simple, quiet, silent performance can mean. And I think it was maybe 15 minutes long. Maybe it was a bit longer. But it just, it said so much more than a lot of other performance pieces that I've seen, and even a lot of feminist pieces. I mean, obviously that was a feminist piece, but it was to me amazing.
So was this your first year in the art program that you saw it?
I'm not sure. I can't remember where it was at. More than likely, it was my second year, because I think just because of the pieces I was doing, that's why Mary would have shown it to me. I'm not sure.
So this would have been like 20 or 30 years after she actually did it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Because I saw it as well.
Yeah.
And it was in the art program at university. I don't remember if it was a postmodernism. I don't remember what
Yeah.
class it was,
Yeah.
but it would have been about late 2000s, I think, for me when I saw it.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Because I think she must have done it in like the early 70s, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
70, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be later than that for sure. But what did you think of it then? It didn't have the same effect, or?
Well, I don't remember the context or the framing of it. I remember being really bored for a while. I think that I think from my horrible memory that there was conversation about it before it started, where I think it would have been more interesting just to be like, here you go, watch this.
Yeah.
However, if you entered the gallery, there would have been some context too. Just like, of these instruments are for you. This isn't like a piece where no one. It's just like there as a, almost like a statue type situation. Yeah, so we had a bunch of context beforehand, so I knew that things were going to happen. The performance itself, I was like, hey, I already know the profound thing. Like, I knew the concept, and the concept was strong, and I understood the importance of it, and different layers of meaning. And then watching it, I just remember being like really bored.
So did you watch like her eyes and her face, or you got bored and went away? Like in your brain, you went away?
I don't remember. It was so long ago. I know that I remember more of a guy's face when he started cutting in front.
Yeah.
And I remember him being, it was gross, because he was like so excited to do it, and I was like, dude, like, at any period of time, this would have felt gross to me, you know what I mean? So it wasn't even like a thing that was like, well, it was a different time, like, no. And that, but I mean, that made the piece what it was, too. I think that there's a certain amount of, certain amount of expectation on her part as to how things would go, but then you said, like, there might have been more than one recording, too. So, like, I don't know if we would have seen the same, I don't know.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
No, I don't think so.
I remember it was black and white as well, so it might have been the exact same one, but
she might have done it again. I don't know. Yeah. I'm
not sure. I don't remember her face though, but from what you're saying, that like if she looked afraid and stuff, then obviously maybe she wasn't as prepared. Maybe she didn't think anyone was going to go there for sure, or maybe she thought about it ahead of time, but then it started happening and it was like, oh crap, this is reality now.
Yeah, like I think maybe she probably didn't realize how much it would make her feel, right?
Yeah.
Like she's put herself in this really vulnerable position. And so probably you wouldn't think about it. I don't know that she would have known that she would have had such a profound feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she was putting it out there. She was, I think she knew what was going to happen. I just don't think she maybe was aware of how much that would affect her.
Yeah.
That piece, I had a friend, Kelly Andres, well, I still do, but it directly influenced, we had done a 5-piece performance installation, and one of the performances where we were each in, it was the studio that we had bay windows on each side, and they were fairly close. And so we both went in there with we sat on a blanket, and I don't know, just were there, and we're blindfolded. And then I think there was music going, and people in the gallery were just invited to, we didn't say what was going to happen. So all they're doing is watching us, and we're doing nothing. Oh, I know. Then we had things like I had lip gloss, and no, I didn't have anything there. No, that's right. We didn't have anything there. We just sat there. We were blindfolded. It was really weird and eerie because obviously you couldn't see anybody. You could feel people milling around. All of a sudden you could see people really close. No, you couldn't see them. You could feel them. And that was way eerier than I anticipated. And then people started sort of whispering, like, do you think we're supposed to do something? Is there something, And so they were not sure, like, what we were doing, if they were supposed to respond, if what was going to happen. And then I had someone come and put lip gloss on me. And it scared the heck out of me, because all of a sudden something wet was on my lips, and I didn't know exactly what it was, and then realized. And what they started to do was try and care for us. So there was, like, they put lip gloss on. Someone else asked if I wanted a glass of wine or something and brought me over a glass of wine. So it was this really weird interaction that I don't know what we thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try it. It was something I'd always thought about, and it was definitely much more. It felt way more than I anticipated.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So then that piece cut by Yoko Ono was like your real first introduction to her as an artist?
Well, no, my really brief teeny weeny introduction was in a John Lennon sort of documentary, and he was helping her install in Japan or something. She had some sort of installation in Japan. And so that was a teeny weeny little bit. I didn't really get it, but I thought it was really cool. Like, I just sort of thought, oh man, she has this whole thing on her own. She was actually very famous in Japan, and like all of those things were new to me. I had no idea.
So then you kind of mentioned how that one piece influenced this other piece that you did.
Yeah.
But I guess as like a whole, did she have much influence over you as an artist, or what did she open up maybe for you or get you thinking about?
Well, I think the biggest thing, like I said before, like inspiration of these different artists is almost permission to open up my way of thinking. So with her, it was this performance. It was a vulnerability. So bringing forth where you're allowing yourself to be really vulnerable for a specific purpose, you know. And so she was sort of showing how this violence could be and how something could start and then could turn into a violent sort of act. I mean, it wasn't overtly. I mean, like you say, the guy was sort of gross, and as a woman, it felt violent to me.
Yeah.
But another piece that I had done in front of SAG, where I'm in a box and people could look in, you know, sort of a different sort of project. But again, just being really vulnerable and not having control. And I think those are sort of the two things that I took out of what Yoko Ono had done. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, give me one of yours.
And yeah, I didn't know what order I was going to do them in, but jumping off of that one,
Okay.
because that was I don't know, kind of heavy, I guess, and like you said, really conceptual and kind of opened things up for you. This is one of my examples of something that's purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
And so there's not much for me to say, but Rock and Jelly Bean is his name. And so I was just thinking of works that were, someone that had figurative work that I really, really enjoyed. And he's contemporary, he's like still alive. He's pretty anonymous. I have no idea what his face looks like. He wears this weird mask whenever he has pictures of himself. Pictures of him working.
What's his name? Rock and Jelly Bean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna go from where you were at to like where it was like this feminism stuff to this is like the opposite. This is like really exploitative. Like it's like really womanizing. But just as a purely aesthetic thing, I love his figures. It's pretty much all, not all he does, but that's what he's known for, really. It's this style that when I first saw it, and I first saw it in Juxtapose magazine, I was like, this looks familiar, but I can't think of anyone else who did it. It seemed like it was almost like it has a feel to it that it's almost like a callback to like 70s like sexploitation type film posters and stuff.
Oh, I know the work now. Yeah.
And so I was like, it looks like it's got this familiarity, not even to a time when I was even alive, but just from the things that I think that I've seen from here and there. And a lot of his figures are like even their style and their dress sometimes is like 60s and 70s, some of it's 80s, and doesn't really get past much more than that.
Yeah.
They're very stylized, like just their ratio even of like their figure and stuff, they're almost all the same. Just their faces and what features are accentuated, like eyes and stuff. So I mean, he's got a very, very distinct style. It's nothing that has influenced my work in any direct way that I can think of at all. I just really enjoy his style and looking at it purely on an aesthetic quality. He doesn't work with like crazy colors that much either. It's just like, that's the other thing that makes it feel like it's got this retro vibe. It's because if it was going to get printed as a poster, I mean, to keep things cheaper.
It does look very posterish.
Yeah. It's like, you know, one or two colors sometimes, or two or three or whatever. Sometimes it almost has an old school comic book feel with just, again, you can't have a lot of like values and shading So I mean, just his style of drawing, and then the way that he layers colors and stuff.
How do you feel about the exploitative part of it?
And I was thinking of that as I was saying. It was like, well, how do I feel about the
How
fact
do you
that
reconcile that?
I don't? I guess I purely. Like I said, I enjoy it for its aesthetic quality, and I'm thinking, well, there is obviously, if I'm pointing out that this is just an aesthetic thing that I enjoy, then I'm also implying there's more than that. Like I know that there's probably an effect that's having on me or any viewer, or if it's a cultural thing or whatever. Like his work is very. And whenever he does prints or anything like that, there's extremely limited. In addition, like he has collectors. This stuff costs like a lot of money. Like it's sought after in that way too. So I'm thinking of like, I'm part of his audience. What does that say about me, right? So I mean, like I don't know how I rectify it. I don't really. I don't know. I like form and figure, especially looking at female form and figure, way more than the male form and figure, even though I have some of that like wallpapered in Studio Mars as well. But I mean, to me, it spans from photography to this stylized thing to like beautiful, intimate art, I guess. And this is art too, but to me, this is so aesthetic that I'm like, this is design. Like, there's not much concept or anything behind it other than being like, this is super sexy, and I want to either excite people or arouse people or whatever. Or sometimes, I mean, it is like it's very commercial. It is like art is incredibly commercial because sometimes it is advertising very specific things. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer about reconciling it except that I don't. I enjoy it for what I enjoy it for, and.
How does it inspire you then, though? Because we're talking about like artists that inspire, right?
Well, part of it. I thought we were talking about like favorite artists and artists that inspire, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Like I said, for me, this is why I'm starting off with it. One, to bounce off of like yours and this feminism aspect and being really heavy. Mm-hmm. And then this to me was like it's the trashiest thing on my list, I think. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that might be debatable with what we're going to talk about. But, and then I don't know, that's one of those things, like that's just a part of what I enjoy looking at, and it's a part of, I don't know how to say it, how it inspires me. Like, there's so many things I keep thinking of, like Studio Mars and how I wallpapered with all this stuff, and to me there's like a huge breadth of different things that I like looking at, of just like...
I don't know, they seem pretty same to me. I've critiqued you about that before, because they seem pretty the same to me. It's funny because...
I'm not talking about figures. I'm just talking about images in general.
Yeah, I guess I was too.
Abstracts, skateboarding, photography, landscapes, figures. I don't know. I think it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
What were you going to say though? I thought you were just talking, when you said they, I thought you were talking about the same like female figure or something.
I guess I was probably, because to me that's what's mostly up. But maybe that's just what I notice mostly. It's funny because, like, we share a studio, obviously, and so I'll put pictures up, like, of me or different, like, whatever, like me in the studio, and people are always like, what the heck's going on? Like, why do you have those things up there? Just because they're so opposite of me, right, and what I normally would have. But I know there are things that you find aesthetically pleasing, and you've said that, like, inspire, like, that's your sort of, aesthetic that you like having around there. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that, like I said, it doesn't seep into my work in a direct way, but there's things that I've explored before, but they were more conceptual with, like, consent and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I've never made a piece yet, even though I want to, so maybe it has inspired me that way, or I just kept the idea in my mind that I would like to make something more design-based that's purely aesthetic, arousing, that isn't a concept. It's just like, it's like painting a portrait for just its aesthetic quality. And there's definitely times I've wanted to do it, and I haven't done it yet. I haven't done many figures in the past couple of years at all. But that's definitely a part of what I enjoy looking at, and I just haven't, like I said, translated directly into my work. But it's been on my mind. So, I mean, what I look at, definitely, whatever I'm looking at, whenever I'm looking at it, keeps those ideas in my mind, right? It keeps them cycling through. So, I guess that's one way that it has yeah, like I said, it's not like to me, it's shallow and more than just content, but in the way that it affects me, I guess it's not anything super, super deep that I contemplate because there's no heavy concept there. It's just, this is super sexy and I'm looking at it, and then, like I said, I've never thought of it and been like, I need to do that, but like I said, just implicitly, I guess it's been part of what's, I don't know, I like having that feeling of, like, I don't know, the word arousal is just so, like, the things that inspire me to paint other things, or to just getting that feeling of arousal or excitement from anything usually inspires me towards something creative or artistic, because it just, I don't know how to explain how those two things are connected. I tried to explain it to a group of friends like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, do you never get that? Like, because it doesn't even have to be the same subject. It's not like I see someone mountain biking, then I'm like, yeah, I really want to go hit a trail. That makes sense. But also, there's times where I just feel like, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's why writing can influence my visual art, or it's why even things like, I mean, sometimes it is like I see a video of somebody skateboarding or something, and I just get excited, and I want to do something, and it's not necessarily the same activity, but just arousal and excitement in general gets me to a place where I feel, I don't know. It's just it's like a general
arousal
excitement.
is such a strong word. Do you
That's
know
why
what
I keep
mean?
using it.
I know. Yeah, I can see that you're liking it, but it is such a strong word, and a word that, like, instead of, like, excitement is much more, maybe banal isn't the right word, but when you use arousal, it's such a sexual word,
Yeah.
right? And so, but you're using it, or you're describing it as not only in a sexual way, but as an inspired way, it sounds like. Because you're saying you can be aroused by watching someone mountain bike, and then you want to mountain bike, and so you equate that. Are you equating that? Like, that's the part I'm not understanding. Are you saying I'm getting aroused, obviously not sexually, but you're using that aroused as an action? No?
I think,
Am I misunderstanding?
I don't know. I mean, there's common use words, and then there's words that are going by more of an academic definition, I guess, and I'm doing a mix of both.
Okay.
Well, I think, like, arousal isn't, I mean, how we use it or whatever, yeah, it's usually tied really sexually, but that's not, I mean, arousal in your spirit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so
I guess that's what I want to bring out. That's what I was wondering.
it's both, because I mean,
Yeah.
there's sometimes I'm like I said, I'm seeing something that to me, like, that's, sometimes it is literally paint, and the way someone paints, which is someone I'll talk about later, that I'm like, it's sexy, and it isn't, there's no figures involved, there's no faces, there's nothing that would be like sexual about it, but things that tend to, I don't know, there's just things that I'm like, that was a sexy whatever that has nothing to do with the act of sex, or traditional, like, physical sexual intercourse, like,
Right.
has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But it makes me feel borderline sexual arousal almost, because I'm just like, so, I don't know how to explain it. I just, like, get something inside where I'm like, like, I want to do something right now with this energy.
Okay.
And
yeah.
so what that thing is, I mean, it just depends on what I'm looking at, but a lot of time it's usually something creative, or sometimes it's, I mean, it's either writing or making visual art.
Yeah.
So, like I said, even if it is mountain biking, sometimes, depending on what I'm looking at, it gets me so excited I end up doing something completely different. Sometimes it's directly like, oh, I wanna go rip a trail right now. But I don't know. There's just like this thing. Like, the other people I was talking to didn't understand it at all either. So I haven't had to explain
I'm
it
not
very
saying
often.
I don't understand it. I just was trying to, like, figure out how to equate it or how you use it,
Yeah.
right? And talk, because it sounds like it's an action word for you, because it is something that you get. It is a feeling that you can get. So as an artist, it's a feeling that you can get that inspires creation in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Like, sometimes it's just a color.
yeah.
I just like seeing someone's nails.
And that's just
is
like, I want to paint now. I want to do something. I want to. Not necessarily, I want to go have sex right now. Although it could be.
Could be. It's not really.
But,
no.
yeah, no, I see what you're saying. That's what I just wanted to, like, figure out what you meant by that action word.
I don't know. I think that it's a whole other topic. I feel like we could talk about sometime, but I feel like sometimes that act of creating is, it's not a sexual act, but I mean it's so linked. Like my arousal, if there's sexual arousal, sometimes is so closely tied to artistic and creative arousal that like sometimes the things cross over. There's times where I've thought about like visual art like before, during, after, especially after the act of sex. Like there's just times where I'm just chemicals or whatever, I don't know, it's just all there, and I like think of like, man, this would be a really great idea. Like it just
So
that's
you're
what I'm saying.
thinking,
There's an arousal of just general like creative spirit sometimes that it, like I said, they both like overlap and cross over with it being sexual or not sexual. That's why I keep using the word arousal, because I know what it means and what it's like evoking, but it's because it gets there sometimes.
Okay.
I feel like we went way off. Way off. But.
Well, I don't know. It's, yeah, it's, like in a way I understand what you're saying. And in a way I think I don't. So, I mean, I guess maybe because I don't usually feel that way, maybe is why I don't get it as much. I definitely, I mean, a lot of my art sort of has a sexual undertone to it, but usually I'm not feeling that way. So usually I'm trying to describe, maybe I'm describing the way I felt in a different thing, or I'm trying to evoke that feeling, but I almost never feel that arousal while I'm creating, or as an impetus to create.
I guess, like, I think I pointed this out earlier, but maybe not strong enough, that, like, okay, if I were to look at a nude woman that appeals to my tastes in every way, and it's like a certain pose, and it's the sexiest thing ever, and it makes me very sexually aroused, if I saw, like, a 2D surface that was, like, a super hot pink, I could almost feel the same thing. Like, if it's the right shade of color or something like that, and it doesn't have to be, like... Because sometimes, like, a sculpture has certain curves in it or something, and that makes me almost feel the same thing. And I describe it as being, like, that's sexy. Like, that's... And, like I said, there's a certain artist that makes work that I'm like, that's incredibly sexy, abstract work. And so, like... I don't know. That's the thing. Sometimes it does, like, I get the same feeling right here, except for the fact that if I'm looking at, like, a woman or something, I'm like, I would like to have intercourse with that woman or something, right? Where it's like, I don't want to have sex with the hot pink. But it almost makes me, it's just the certain feeling arises in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be
You know
anything.
what? I'm like that with words.
Yeah.
I just realized that. I am definitely like that with words and oral. Like, when I mean oral, I mean like A-U-R-L. A-L? Like hearing.
Just auditory. Like,
yeah. Because words can definitely do that. Like the sound of the words, or like if I'm saying words, like even now I'm talking, I can feel my tongue in my mouth. Like it's just sort of this feeling of, and so I can definitely sort of get that. I'm kind of getting it now. Can definitely sort of get that feeling from words, or writing words, or reading, like if I'm reading something, and it doesn't have to be sexy, it's just if it's really like smart and the words are kind of lovely put together, or you know, something like that. So I didn't realize that until you were talking about it. So I don't get that visually really, which doesn't surprise me, but I definitely do, like a lot of oral stimulation will right away I sort of feel things, or reading and words in my mouth can make me feel like that. So, I don't know. Weird little side thing.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I'm very, very visual.
Yeah.
And that's why that space is wallpapered with so much stuff, because I like visual stimulation. So.
Yeah. Well, and we couldn't really have audio going all the time for me, but yeah, there's certain sounds that just like, yeah. So, anyways.
Who you got next?
Oh, well, I think, okay.
What?
Well, it seems like you should go next.
I can.
No, you go next. Okay, I'll go next. I have Cindy Sherman. So these are ones, I kind of started with ones that are definitely inspire, but a little bit less. But Cindy Sherman is definitely an interesting artist. A feminist artist from the 70s. She's still working now, I think. And she does what she does, a lot of what she's done. Of course, she has varied work. but a lot of what she's done that was inspiring is making stills from movies. So she does half the time, most of the time, she's almost unrecognizable. So, and then takes photos. So there are these photo stills that have a very cinematic feel. And I guess that just appealed to me. It's just something.
I'm getting lost. Sorry.
Okay.
So you said she takes stills from movies?
No, she recreates stills from movies.
Oh,
to tell you
she
the
recreates
truth,
it. So it's like a freeze frame, and she will insert herself.
Yeah, she recreates the whole scene. So it's not like she even. This is sort of like before you could just sort of put yourself in video, right? So she takes a scene from, and honestly, I don't know enough about her, so it's pretty surface what I know about her. Oh, it's hot, but it's pretty surface. So I don't know if they're actual stills from films or if she's creating a cinematic still that looks like it's from a movie. So I'm not sure, and she might have a mix of both. But it looks like you're looking at a still of a movie, especially to me. It kind of has a what's that guy's name? Oh, can't think of his name. Anyways, they have a very cinematic feel.
Okay.
And she dresses up, and the whole way she does her face and wigs and costumes, she's pretty much unrecognizable, but she's inserted herself into these different movies or sets. And so the inspiration I took there, more than anything, and like I say, the inspiration sometimes is just this allowing me to do something that I might not otherwise do. And so sort of what I took from that was the ability to be able to change myself in costume or present myself in different ways. And especially photography, I've done a lot of photography, and it just kind of gave me that permission to be able to do whatever I want, maybe, like to be able to insert myself. And as I've talked about on this podcast and my podcast, and probably ad nauseum now for everybody, but looking at sort of my body and how I fit into whatever's going on.
Okay.
And so it kind of gave me, I guess, that permission that way to kind of figure out where I fit and stuff, and to be able to photograph that and things like that. So I use photography, and my latest one is one way to use it, but I've done lots of different projects that insert me in different ways, or places, or that kind of thing. So, like I say, it's pretty surface. She's an interesting feminist artist, and yeah, I'm sorry that I don't know a lot about her, but she's interesting.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can see that connection. It's still not exactly like the exact same work, right? But it's just like you inserting your. I feel like the way that you're talking about it. I mean, I don't know exactly. Maybe there was some specific significance to how she inserted herself into that scene, because maybe it was a male-dominated scene, or who knows, right?
Yeah.
I don't, because I had never heard of it before. But I mean, but the way that you, I don't even want to say insert yourself into whatever, but you are, I think, especially with most recent works the past couple of years, have been forcing like yourself to be seen, and not just you, but what your like you said, age, body type, gender, sex, sexuality, everything, to be seen, to be present, and to be like, this is, I'm not alone. There's other people. We don't have enough representation sometimes, and also just how people react to you forcing that.
Yeah.
So I completely get the connection there.
All right. Next.
We'll switch it up a bit.
Okay.
So there's.
I can see that little brain like working.
I was just like,
who am I gonna give? That's gonna
So this is a Canadian artist based out of Vancouver named Soak, Soak, and yeah, I feel like, again, there's not a lot of hugely direct influence specifically. There's a couple things, but I don't want to call him a graffiti artist. He's an artist who did a lot of graffiti. It still does.
Yeah.
Illegal graffiti and legal graffiti. So I first saw his work, it was years ago. Maybe like 10 years ago. Just through Facebook and social media, because he had painted trains with some people in Saskatoon that I was following that were in like the generation before me, that were very important writers in that scene. doing graffiti in the city. There's a crew called Freightophiles, as in like train freights. And I know that he had done some work with them and stuff on different trains, and I mean he travels a decent amount, rides the rails actually still, like I think he was doing that this summer, and just traveling to different places, painting with different people at different spots. But he does a lot of, or he was doing a lot of commercial art in Vancouver at one point as well, for like I think one of them was one of the Nike stores. He's got some characters that he's developed a lot that are very trademark of his now. Like there's I forget the name for like Mexican wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't think of the name right now. All I think of is Nacho Libre right now, like a Jack Black movie. But so he's that's one of his like characters that does a lot. Starfish for some reason, mushrooms. I know the reason behind that. But he's got some specific characters that he does, and then he also just like he's got a very distinct style. The reason why I'm bringing him up is because like I started writing and doing like graffiti and tagging before I even had any artistic interest or artistic influence or whatever. It was just writing on walls and like still like a creative way of stylizing my letters. But it was years before I ever saw or really paid attention to the art that people were doing. And he's someone, like I said, who's just done a lot. I mean, he's done tons of trains and like commercial work in Vancouver, canvases. The direct influence he had is that was the first time I had seen someone paint on vinyl. So he was doing
by vinyl you mean records?
Yeah, on vinyl records. So he had painted like the word soak and then like had some characters and stuff. And I was like, that is a fantastic idea. Yeah. So then I started doing that. And yeah, so that was the first person that I saw, but I'm sure someone had done it before, guaranteed. But that was like a major influence. I just love his style more than there's writers in Saskatoon and I love their style too. And a lot of them that I'm thinking of actually, some of them have done work on me with tattoos and whatever, and then they branch out more than just graffiti. And like I said, he does too. He does a lot of characters and other stuff. It's mostly characters and letters and not much else. But his style is incredibly clean. Like it's just this amazing style that I love. It's so crisp and so clean with everything he does. He's just, out of any person that uses spray paint and paint markers as a medium that started with graffiti or is really known for their graffiti and characters, I can't think of anyone, like he's done the 10,000 hours, put it that, like everything is so dialed in and just perfect and crisp, and like and it's also just the depth and breadth, like he's done like I said, trains to canvas to like these vinyl records to like murals in stores to like a popular thing too is like in the wilderness, like wrapping like almost like saran wrap in like a space between trees just to make a wall and then leave it there, which is like kind of cool because it's almost like public art that's not like you can just cut it right off and it's not going to necessarily damage anything, right? If it's there for a while, I mean it just depends how that plastic gets disposed of. But there's just a lot of that stuff. So I've never met him in person. I don't know him directly. But his work is just like, it doesn't influence my work specifically, except for the fact that it's just like, man, every time I see it, I'm like, I need to work on my graffiti skills again because like it never got to a point where I was ever confident, ever. Mm-hmm. And I like looking at it, I like doing it. And I never spent time doing it. So I mean, that's the way that it kind of inspires me. Is that he is my like top shelf example of like the best like graffiti style stuff that I have ever seen. Consistent, just.
And I know one time we'll have a podcast about it, but you define graffiti as
stylized letter structure.
Right, and so is his always that?
Not always. Sometimes it's just the characters.
Yeah.
But I've never seen him do anything outside of characters or letters, and usually they're both together. Mm-hmm. But it's not. And
by characters you mean
like animals.
So he does
humans.
go away from the just the lettering.
Yeah. Like I said, usually they're both combined. Sometimes it's just letters. Sometimes it's just the characters. But it's not. I haven't seen him do a landscape. I've never seen him do an abstract piece or anything realism. I've never seen him do. It's just mostly like these very stylized, cartoonish kind of characters that are very his own. Like he's refined these characters.
And did you ever try and emulate those then? What did you see his work when you were doing graffiti, or did you see it after?
I saw it after. I saw it after I had stopped doing illegal graffiti.
Yeah.
So it was around the time that I started to move to canvas, and that's when I was like, oh, I could just buy cheap vinyl records, and those. And at the time, like, I was selling those more than canvas.
Just doing graffiti on them.
Yeah, and like I did like custom orders and like the people's names or whatever. So yeah, so that was like the direct thing that I took. I was like, oh, you're using this as a canvas. That's a great idea. It was cheaper. Because it was small, but it was like a different shape and stuff. Like it was kind of a novelty because not many people were doing it. And then more people started to do it, like at Fringe Festival and stuff. Like people definitely started to use stencils on them or whatever. And like I said, I don't think he's the first one to do it, but he's the first person that I saw do it, and he just does it so amazingly well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just writing it.
No,
you inspired
an
idea.
Oh.
You inspired an idea.
Well.
So, okay.
I was hoping that wouldn't happen, but
I think you have to leave that in.
yeah. I was like so careful. Bunged everything up here. Oh, there we go. Okay, what was your idea?
My idea?
Yeah.
Well, I've been wanting to do, I used to do a lot more, or I did a pretty big installation with lipstick, like I called them lip paintings. And when you were saying that, I was thinking on a record, I could mouth the song of the record and have like my lip prints on the record.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
You would just title it the song, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be killer.
So I will probably try that.
Who
you have a couple records here, so I could maybe try one.
I do.
So, yeah. Who do I have next? I have Barbara Kruger. Well, you've seen her stuff, I think. So I think they were usually black and white pictures, and then they had text on them. Oh, I should have written down like an actual title of something. But they would have, oh, damn it. I think I want to
People can look her up.
Yeah, anyways, the reason she inspired me is using text. So she had like a black and white picture, and then usually like a red, bold text that said something that was challenging. She also like had a series that was challenging the surveillance of everything. So sort of saying something about surveillance, how we're all being watched, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And so they were really powerful. They had a commercial look just because of the way. So in a way, when you first saw them, they maybe had like an advertisement look. In a way, I'm probably pushing that a little bit. But just because of their crispness, they had sort of more of a commercial look. But I just love that use of text and a really challenging text on a work. And I keep trying to use it in painting. I keep like trying to push the text in there, and it just comes across as like a horrible grade 9 paint project. It's awful.
So,
like,
sorry, it was
no.
Was it text in? Was it on a photo?
Yeah.
So
it was very
typed?
flat. Yeah, it was very typed, so it would be like
a font that was inserted, but it wasn't like the caption, it was on top of the photo?
Yeah, it was on top of the photo, but not covering the whole photo.
No,
like you still saw the photo.
Okay.
But like I say, the series I'm thinking of just off the top of my head, she has quite a few, was with a black and white, I think like nude women, maybe not quite nude, and just, sort of a lot of it, like definitely feminist text, but so sort of definitely challenging text, having this commercial look. It was almost, they were in commercial places. She also then did like digital, like the digital signs for a while. Like now it's all LED, but those ones that would kind of like light up and kind of, So she had that, and so they were sort of these ones that you weren't quite sure what it was, but it very challenging and very in your face. And very stark, but I just, like I say, I just really like that use of text because they are so tied to me, and text is something that I really like. So,
and that's a thing that's challenging in itself to do, and this is something depending on how experienced you are as an artist or whatever. That it's something that even if I don't think people realize how challenging it is to use text in a visual art piece, unless maybe they've had someone talk to them about it. I mean, it was something that we talked about in university during critiques, and that's when I was really like, because text was my art to begin with, right?
Yeah,
but it wasn't in a piece of visual art; it was the art. So, but it's one of those things that when we start talking about, oh, how far away should the viewer be? When does your eye like optically start mixing things or like whatever? And when you talk about that level of like, if this is being made to be seen in a gallery or by the viewer, at what point is it gonna like blend for them and where is their eye going? That was the thing I wanted to get. Like, where is the eye going? Oh, if I'm working on something abstract, should there be a focal point? Like, and people talk about the rule of thirds and all that nonsense I don't believe in. But the thing with text is that if it's text that you can read, you're going to read it. And that's where your eye is usually going to go. So it's really tricky to use it in a visual art piece because it might, like you said, it was very like challenging, not just with the difficulty level of trying to do it well, but the text itself was like challenging the viewer, or it was the concept, or so strong.
Yeah.
That like, do you want it to take away from the visuals? How much does the text play with the visuals that are there? Why, like, there's a relationship between those two things that has to be there, but also like you want the person to see what else is happening. So I haven't seen these pieces you're talking about, not in my memory.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that like that's.
I think it was. The text was the piece, right? Yeah. Like you were talking about before. I've used text, I think, successfully, but it has always been in installations.
Okay.
So it was part of something else. So at one time there was an entire wall of clothing that was stacked like four and four, and then on the clothing were little bits. So you wanted to get up, you could touch it, you were supposed to read what was on it. Another installation, there was definitely text there. So in installations, I feel like I've used it quite well. And yes, definitely the text was the art, or was so tied with the art. I mean, one piece I had, it was text, and then up in the corner was a video. So definitely when you have text and you have video is gonna, it's gonna draw you in. And one had text coming down, at the bottom was like a big cast of my ass, basically, with rose hips in it. But it was still definitely, and because of the text, it came down, and then the rose hips were at the bottom, so it brought you to the piece. I never painted before, so I've never tried using text on paintings, and I'm not successful at that yet. I will be one day. But yeah, hers, the way she used the text was very commercial looking, and I think that's kind of what made it successful.
Well, and that just, so for you, what I'm gathering this from my knowledge of you too, is because you've been writing before you're doing visual art, right?
Yeah.
And that was just a huge thing for you. So just seeing even whatever her words were, whatever, like you said, those were challenging in themselves. Challenging the viewer to have these thoughts or questions.
And that was art, right?
Yeah.
That all of a sudden something that looked just like an ad, basically.
Yeah.
You know, you could have it side by side with something else. It was an ad for lipstick or something. I mean, it didn't have that same look. But, I mean, so that in itself was this different way of challenging it. That, you know, this isn't a fine painting that then has it on. This is, so yeah. And then, like I say, her digital signs and stuff like that. So she just uses words for her pieces and activism and stuff like that. Yeah. Barbara Kruger. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Who's next for you? You like think so hard, like how you're gonna sneak these in. Me, I've got like a list. I'm like,
well, I have a list. I didn't.
I know, but like me, I like go on my list like this, and I can just see your head like just like cranking, like, who am I gonna do next?
I think it was only because of the first one that you did, I was like, this makes sense to talk about this next, and then I think now it's falling apart on me. So I was trying to be like, oh, maybe I can play off that with the next person. Well, where's? I feel like it'll be a little disjointed, but that's fine.
That's okay, yeah.
So I don't remember his name, so I need to look it up.
Okay.
Lev Kesin, Khesin. I don't know how to pronounce that. But he was the person I was talking about before that is has these sexy, abstract pieces that are just in. I know I've showed one to you before, and I looked back at the stuff even earlier from like mid 2000s, and it's not the same as it is now, but it is still abstract, and it's just abstract, just using color and composition. But a lot of it is very much like, it's not abstract like I do, which is one reason why I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. But I don't know how to describe the older stuff. I mean, there's usually a dominant color or two. It's not like all over the place. It's not like some, I don't even know what to compare it to. But I wish I had thought of to get the title of the first piece of his that I saw. When I described it to you, you might remember. It was like this amazing, like, I don't know what to call it, cherry purple, and it had different like variances of those hues. But I got to the bottom and it like curled up, like it was thick.
Right.
It was just this thick.
See, now I know what you mean about that, like arousal and amazing.
Yeah.
Like that thick paint at the bottom, and how juicy that is.
Oh, it was so
now I
good.
kind of understand. Yeah.
Well, it's silicone and.
Oh, that's a good idea.
What was the?
We should try that.
Silicone and I don't like the media that he used that he listed. What's another word for a hue? For a hue of a color.
Shade? No.
Shade, tint, hue. It's none of those. Pigment.
Oh,
it just said silicone and pigment. And
so we just add like a dry pigment to it, probably.
I have no idea. I tried looking up kind of how, like, I just went to his website and then I was like, oh, he has a book. I want this book. But, and that's when I looked at his older work. No, I didn't look into how much it would be even. Yeah. But I was wondering if it had anything about his process, and I just couldn't find anything in time. But yeah, it's just, in the past couple of years, the way that he handles, and I don't even want to say the paint, but it's, the silicone and pigment, but the way he handles it looks to me like I just thought it was really, really thick acrylic paint with
That's
like a certain gel medium or something. Mm-hmm. It is just so, I can't stop saying thick. It's just so.
Let's try it, seriously. Why haven't we tried it?
I don't know. I don't even know what it means to paint with or use silicone in that aspect.
I want to so badly now. See, this is what happens when you get inspired. Like, literally, I feel like stopping and going and doing it.
Yeah.
I do. I really do. We're not. But I'm just saying, like, that's sort of what happens. Yeah, cut. Yeah. But it is. It's sort of like, oh, that's like so, like, and that's a new way of doing it. And yeah. Anyway.
Yeah,
I do know that piece you're talking about, and it is super juicy. Yeah.
He, again, he's contemporary as well, and.
Did you say Kessen?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's
well,
L.
L. There was an L in there.
Yeah, so it's no. My bad.
Lead,
My bad. Kessen. You're right. That's SIN. And LEV. No I. So LEV. Last name is Kessen. Okay. But yeah, he's got a website, and I found his stuff on Instagram through from a gallery that had posted his thing, and I was like, this is amazing. I think it was United London. I don't remember the Instagram.
Yeah, very good stuff.
Yeah, I think it was that. But either way, it just that's just one of my favorite, if I want to even say abstract, non-objective artists right now that I'm just like blown away. Like, there's so many things that I see that I'm like, that's really nice, but consistently, all his pieces, like, for the most part, I'm just like, not all of them are that sexy and arousing, but they're all good. Yeah. But that one was just so, and because it had a sculptural element, like, it was just handling the stuff so that it was so thick and it like curled, and it was just like the curve of the way that it curled and everything. I was just like, I've never been more aroused by a piece of art, I think, ever. Like, it was just amazing, and I wasn't just like, if it was just white, it wouldn't have had the same effect. If it was just white and still had all the sculptural elements, it wouldn't be the same.
It'd still be really cool, though.
It would be cool.
Yes, I can see where it wouldn't be as...
But it was just the way he handled the color, too, because it wasn't just flat. Like, I mean, the color wasn't just one color. It was just the way that it faded and, like, the layers of it. Yeah. So, the only thing that I think directly inspires me, I'm saving all my real deep inspirations for the rest of it, but I really like working thick, and this just makes me want to... I keep saying it. It's also expensive to work thick. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I need to...
But I don't think silicone's super expensive, though.
I don't know.
Because I've been trying to figure out how to work thick, too. Like, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it just keeps, again, if I see it, it plants the idea in my head too, like, I need to work thick, I need to work thick, I need to work thick, because I love it.
Yeah.
I don't do it enough, and I should be, if that's what really gets me excited, I should be doing that more and being more excited about what I'm actually creating.
Yeah.
But yeah, his stuff is just
I will
amazing.
look up more of his stuff.
Yes, can't go wrong with that. I think, I'm just going to say this right now before we get to your next one.
Yeah.
Just because, like, we started off by saying it's probably going to be a 2-part thing,
Yeah,
and it definitely is.
Okay.
We're at 1 hour and 5, so I think right now I'm just going to Wayne's World, like, or whatever. Like, I think that...
Can we take a break and
pee? We'll just take a break, and we're going to keep recording, but I mean, the second part of it will be the week after.
Yeah.
And like I said, my stuff anyway, I know is going to be like the stuff that really, really inspires me and helps me with my art practice and is really whatever in a different way than these. I think a lot of the ones I mentioned for me right now are more of like aesthetically pleasing and are just like, oh, it's so good. Like part of it inspires me to be a better artist, or inspires me to like want to do this and do that, but it's not something that I've integrated into my art practice in the same way.
Yeah.
Not like the stuff all this is aesthetically inspiring and not so much conceptually, and that's where I'm going to be at with my other ones. Yeah. And I don't know what you have going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I guess that's the first part, and
we'll see you in a week.
Yeah, and we'll be wearing the same stuff because we're recording it. I mean, for people that are going to watch the YouTube video. Should
I change my top or something?
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Cut. All right. Oh, we didn't say, is this an artist life?
It is the artist life.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we just said it right there.